Welcome to Verge File.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. When your wife starts referring to your marriage in business terms, strategic alignment, emotional ROI, and personal bandwidth, you start wondering when exactly your love turned into a boardroom pitch. I got the first taste of it on a Wednesday morning. She slid a manila folder across the counter while sipping her espresso like we were finalizing a quarterly report. Inside was a detailed spreadsheet. 2 columns. One labeled assets, the other liabilities. I was in both. Think of this as a partnership review, she said, barely looking up. And that was the moment I realized. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a merger, one she thought she controlled. At first, I laughed, nervously, thought maybe it was some kind of twisted joke. But her tone was ice cold, her voice flat, like she'd practiced it. My name is Mark, and I've built things, startups, systems, and structures. But nothing challenged me like building a life with Lauren. She was sharp, beautiful, and ambitious. A perfect storm. In the beginning, it was magnetic. She loved my discipline, and I loved her fire. But somewhere along the way, she stopped being my partner and started treating me like an asset on her balance sheet. The turning point came at the kitchen island, where we once planned vacations and laughed over takeout. Now she was offering me a realignment of responsibilities, suggesting I take a sabbatical from decision-making. She actually used those words. I didn't say a thing, not because I was shocked, but because I finally understood. She didn't see me anymore. She saw leverage, structure, control. So I nodded, played along. Shadow X doesn't react. He watches, calculates, and when he moves, it's final. I spent the next 3 weeks gathering documents, backing up files, contacting people she didn't even know existed. I smiled through dinners, agreed to her terms, let her believe she'd won. The merger was still active, on paper, but behind the scenes, I was quietly dissolving the partnership. No rage, no warnings. She wouldn't see the exit coming. And when it hit, she'd know exactly what she traded away. 3 weeks passed. She thought I was adapting. I wasn't. Lauren started calling our conversations alignment check-ins. Her tone had a clinical edge to it, like a manager updating a team member about policy changes. She wanted to maximize emotional efficiency. Her words, not mine. I stopped asking why. She had rebranded love into logistics. We used to touch each other like we were afraid time would steal us away. Now, her hand only touched mine when she needed me to sign something. And sign I did. Every time she dropped a document in front of me, reallocating expenses, household task optimization, joint calendars sync, I nodded and signed. I wanted her confident, comfortable, distracted. The more control she thought she had, the more leverage I built behind her back. While she was drawing up her next domestic management protocol, I was contacting a discreet legal team I'd used during an acquisition years ago. People who operated quietly, without emotion. Just like me now. My lawyer, Greg, said, "You sure you want to do this quietly?" I said, "Loud revenge leaves room for regret. I'm done with noise." Lauren thought she was handling a man too passive to resist. That was the bait. She mistook calm for compliance. She had no clue that every asset in our shared portfolio, our investments, the vacation house, the intellectual property tied to my business, was sliding silently back under my exclusive control. I moved like a ghost. Shadow 4. 5. No friction. No trace. The moment she slipped, I'd be ready. And then it happened. She left her iPad open on the kitchen counter, something she never did. Notifications were popping up. Quick, careless ones. I wasn't snooping. I was walking by with my coffee. One message stood out. "Let's not rush." I told him I needed space to think. It was from a contact saved as Dan HR. I didn't know a Dan. Another ping came in seconds later. "He's playing along. It's working." I didn't open the thread. I didn't need to. The merger was a front. She was grooming an exit while keeping my resources warm. But here's the thing. She thought I'd beg to stay relevant. She had no idea I'd already exited, without a word, without a scene. And when my envelope hit her hands, she'd learned that in business, as in love, dissolutions don't come with forewarnings. Only silence. I didn't mention the messages. I didn't raise an eyebrow, didn't throw a fit, didn't even breathe heavier. That's what she would have expected from the old me. The man who reacted, who explained, who wanted to talk it through. That version of me was dead. What stood now was silence in human form. The next morning, she kissed my cheek like nothing happened and said she'd be working late. I smiled, nodded, and handed her a protein bar on her way out. I even packed her lunch. She called me thoughtful. It wasn't kindness. It was protocol. Because while she was heading to that extended strategy session at work or to Dan, I was already at my lawyer's office finalizing the asset reversal paperwork. Every signature, every clause, was airtight. There'd be no clawback, no alimony. Our prenup, which she once laughed off as cute, had a clause I'd written myself, buried in legalese she'd never bothered to read. Clause 19. Infidelity suspends all claims. Now, I didn't have physical proof yet, but I didn't need to file anything immediately. I just needed leverage and patience. I stayed outwardly warm, but emotionally out of reach. She noticed. Lauren started trying harder, asking if I was okay, suggesting we take a trip together to reconnect. She booked a weekend cabin in the mountains. I said yes. I packed nothing. I canceled the cabin booking 5 minutes after she confirmed it. Then I checked the shared credit card history and saw the reservation was made the same day she had lunch with Dan HR at a hotel restaurant in another zip code. She was juggling both lives. I was watching her hands. I created distance without creating suspicion. I stopped texting during the day. When she asked why, I said I was deep in a new project. She smiled, relieved. Thought I was invested in something again. She had no idea I was preparing a financial firewall, moving accounts offshore, removing her as a beneficiary on my will, switching passwords and P.O. boxes. Every file she could access became a decoy. Every shared doc, a placeholder. I even upgraded the security system at the house, under the pretense of a promotion perk. What she didn't know was I had a second set of cameras routed only to me. I watched her as she watched herself in mirrors. Her confidence was building, and that was perfect, because when the fall came, I wanted her to feel the full weight of the altitude. There's a special kind of quiet before something collapses. It's not silence. It's the tightening of the air, like a breath held too long. That was our house. That was me. Lauren still wore confidence like perfume, expensive, overbearing, and fading fast. She had no idea I'd already pulled the foundation out from under her. She thought she was dancing on solid ground, but the floor beneath her was paper thin. The turning point came on a Tuesday. She had another offsite. I didn't ask. She offered details I never requested. Who was going, what room they booked, even sent me a photo of the agenda. I didn't look at it. Instead, I reviewed the footage. She didn't go to the conference center. She met Dan at a rental apartment 30 minutes outside the city. The cameras caught them entering. 2 hours later, leaving. Disheveled. Giddy. I didn't flinch. That night, she came home humming. Said she was exhausted. Poured herself wine, kicked off her heels, and sat beside me like nothing in her world could possibly go wrong. I watched her for a moment. Then I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and came back with a pen. Can you sign this? I asked. She blinked. What is it? Just an internal transfer. Business account. I lied. She signed without reading. I thanked her. That signature? It was authorization to dissolve her access to our shared holding account, an account funded entirely by my company dividends. She'd never touch a dollar of it again. 3 days later, her gym membership was declined. Then her Amazon order. Her card froze at the salon. I didn't gloat. I didn't speak. I just waited. She approached me that night, nervous. Hey, have you noticed something weird with our cards? I think the bank. I cut her off. I'll take care of it. She smiled, grateful. She still thought we were a team. And I? I was already living in a new apartment downtown. Fully furnished. Minimalist. Clean. Quiet. I slept there now, most nights. I told her I was working late. She didn't question it. I made sure the bedroom at home stayed untouched. No scent, no presence, no trace. When she finally noticed, it would hit like frostbite, slow at first, then devastating. She was still negotiating our marriage like a business deal. But I was already gone. I was just letting her walk deeper into the illusion. Every confident smile she wore was one step closer to the edge. And I was done yelling. I was preparing the silence that would destroy her louder than any scream. I watched her unravel in increments, like a slow burn in a luxury dress. She didn't catch fire. She smoldered, quiet, invisible, until the damage couldn't be ignored. It started small. A canceled lunch with a client because her rideshare card failed. Then a decline tap at her favorite boutique. Her assistant called me, thinking there was a fraud alert. I told him not to worry. It was intentional account restructuring. He didn't ask more. He knew better. Lauren began to double-check every receipt. She asked me if we'd hit some sort of budget cap. I told her we hadn't. Technically, that was true for me. She started skipping her off-sites, stayed home more, wore her tension like armor. I knew what she feared most wasn't poverty. It was losing control. She had built her status carefully, like a high-rise of glass panels. But she never thought to check the structural integrity. Because I was always the one holding the steel in place. Now she was realizing I'd walked away from the foundation. I didn't give her a confrontation. That would have given her a stage. Instead, I offered her silence and subtle absence. A forgotten text here. A missed dinner there. I became the ghost of our marriage, present, but ungraspable. Her tone shifted. She became sweet, polite, more affectionate. She started asking about my day again, complimenting my shirts like we were 25 and dating. But it wasn't romance. It was survival. She sensed something had shifted. And when women like Lauren feel instability, they cling, not to you, but to the version of themselves they're terrified of losing. That week, she planned a surprise dinner, lit candles, played soft jazz, made her famous seared salmon, and poured my favorite whiskey. She was trying to fix something she didn't even know was broken. We sat in silence most of the meal. I nodded, ate, said thank you. Before bed, she looked at me and said, I don't know what's been happening lately, but I'm glad we're still solid. I looked at her, said nothing, and walked out. I didn't sleep at the downtown apartment that night. I slept in the office, not because I had work, but because I wanted the distance to settle in her bones. She'd treated love like equity, and I'd just started the audit. She still didn't see it, but the reflection in her mirror was starting to crack. The first true crack appeared on a Thursday morning, exactly 7:43 a.m. Lauren stood in front of the fridge, staring at an untouched bottle of oat milk, holding her phone like it might suddenly explain everything. She turned to me with a look I hadn't seen since her father cut her off years ago, raw panic barely veiled by practiced poise. Why did my Amex get declined at the club last night? She asked, too calmly. I took a sip of black coffee and said, might want to call them. She blinked. No protest. No demand. Just static. That silence told me everything. She finally understood this wasn't a glitch. It was a shift. She'd always managed perception, knew how to pivot, to charm, to use soft manipulation like a scalpel. But this wasn't a conversation. This was structure. Lauren tried to play it casual over the next few days. Asked if we could look at the finances together. She joked that maybe we were getting old and needed a spreadsheet to stay on track. I told her the passwords had changed. She didn't ask for them again. By then, I had rerouted all accounts to a private firm, changed legal access on the joint property, and had my personal attorney preparing a move she wouldn't see coming. Meanwhile, I watched her try to stabilize her image. She posted old couple photos, tagged me in a #grateful post, and even commented on my work page. She thought the problem was optics, but she didn't know the foundation was already gone. That weekend, she found the duffel bag in the back of the guest room closet. It was packed, quietly, methodically. A few shirts, my old passport, and the black leather notebook I hadn't opened in 6 years. She didn't ask why it was there. She didn't need to. We were having breakfast when she finally said it, her voice trembling like a taut string. Are you leaving me? I didn't answer. I didn't even look up. Instead, I finished my eggs, placed the fork down gently, stood up, and walked out. No suitcase. No dramatic exit. Just absence. That moment hit her harder than any fight ever could. Because for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was executing. This wasn't a man running from betrayal. This was a man clearing the ruins before rebuilding. And she wasn't part of the new architecture. The first real fracture didn't happen behind closed doors. It happened in front of 27 people, 2 servers, and 1 photographer with a wide lens. Lauren had organized a brunch. Her signature move, curate the perfect crowd, mix successful acquaintances with a few envious stragglers, serve overpriced champagne, and post candids like a documentary crew, was following her life. Except this time, I didn't show up. I wasn't late. I wasn't stuck in traffic. I simply didn't appear. She had a seat reserved for me. Navy napkin folded, just so. Name card and script, she once paid a calligrapher to design. Every 20 minutes, someone leaned toward her and whispered, "Is Mark coming?" She laughed it off. "Of course," she said. "He's just dealing with a call. Big project." But minutes kept passing. The photographer, hired by her, naturally, paused between candids and started asking questions. And then came the moment I'd prepared for. At exactly 1:15 p.m., one of her girlfriends leaned across the table and casually mentioned something she saw online. "Mark posted something weird," she said, scrolling. Lauren stiffened. The woman turned the phone screen around. It was a photo of my keyring on the marble counter. A ring of keys, alone. No caption. No context. But anyone who knew me knew. Lauren's face didn't break immediately. She performed, smiled, lifted her mimosa, made a joke about me being cryptic. But the edges of her control started fraying. And someone captured it. That photo, the one moment her facade cracked, circulated that evening faster than she could delete or explain. Her circle began to shift. Friends she thought loyal stopped liking her posts. Invitations slowed. A business partner postponed their pitch brunch. Even her trainer canceled 2 sessions to reassess scheduling. Lauren, who had once owned the algorithm of social standing, was watching her identity dissolve one interaction at a time. I wasn't cruel. I didn't post a word about what she did. I simply stopped showing up. And when people asked where I'd gone, they looked at her for answers. But she had none. Because truth isn't a press release. It's absence that doesn't explain itself. And that silence, mine, was the loudest sound in her world. I didn't block her. I didn't scream, beg, or write a monologue. I just vanished from her world, surgically, precisely, and without permission. Lauren came home to a quiet apartment. No scent of coffee. No gym bag by the door. No chargers on the counter. The drawer where I kept my watches? Empty. The leather journal she once gifted me sat untouched on the table, a bookmark resting on the first page. I never opened it. She called once. Then again. Her third attempt went straight to voicemail. She didn't know it yet, but her number had been moved to silent unknown. Not blocked. Not erased. Just beneath my radar, like background noise I chose not to hear. Over the next 2 days, she tried everything. Texts, emails, tagging me in nostalgic posts, even voice notes where she sounded like a woman trying to breathe underwater. Every message sat unread. Her panic grew when she realized I'd transferred my portion of our shared savings. Quietly, legally. I had spoken to the bank weeks before. I knew the clauses, the access, the codes. She opened her app one morning and saw a figure that was half of what she expected. The rest, mine, was gone. Then came the locks. I'd paid extra for rush rekeying. Not just the main door. Garage, mailbox, storage, all changed. The click of a deadbolt that no longer answered to her key, just silence. Lauren stood outside for nearly 40 minutes the next day, buzzing the intercom like a teenager left out of a house party. She left a bag at the door, her handwriting on a card. I didn't read it. I watched through the peephole until she walked away, then tossed it in the trash. Not because I was angry, because I was done. People think silence is passive, but silence is war, executed with discipline. No theatrics. No revenge post. Just the erasure of a woman who thought she'd always have access. I didn't speak to her family. Didn't reply to mutual friends. When someone asked where I was, they got a single answer. Not available. Lauren had lived her whole life performing for attention. But now, for the first time, no one was watching. Especially me. And that was the real punishment. 2 weeks later, I was in a new city. No shared friends. No favorite coffee spot haunted by old memories. No risk of running into her in a grocery aisle, pretending we both didn't see each other. My name was still the same, but the man behind it wasn't. I started waking up early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Cold showers, long runs, no distractions. I took every piece of chaos Lauren had left behind and turned it into motion. My body changed first. Then my mind followed. No more hesitation. No more noise. I didn't post updates. I didn't need to. While she refreshed her feed hoping for signs of life, I was already living. The day I bought the motorcycle, something shifted. It wasn't just about speed. It was about control. I wasn't riding away from the past. I was choosing every new direction. A stranger at the gym told me I looked like I'd been through hell. I smiled, nodded, and kept going. Let them guess. Let them wonder. Silence does more damage than explanation ever could. Lauren tried again, this time through a mutual friend. She's not doing well, they said. She misses you. I said nothing. My silence wasn't about pride. It was about clarity. She had gambled on my forgiveness, played with my loyalty like it was something she could cash in whenever she felt the weight of her choices. But loyalty is not a switch. It's a structure. And once broken, it never rebuilds the same way. One night, I walked past a bar where a couple was arguing. The woman reminded me of Lauren. Same gestures, same tone. The man sat there, quiet, staring through her like she wasn't even real. That moment, that was me, months ago. Except now, I wasn't at that table anymore. I didn't need closure. I didn't need revenge. I needed distance, and I took it. Not with rage, not with threats, but with the kind of quiet that rewires your bones. This wasn't about healing. It was about upgrading. It's funny how silence becomes a weapon when you stop using it to survive and start using it to speak louder than any scream ever could. Lauren finally texted. I messed up. I know. Can we talk? I looked at the screen like it was an old photo, something once important, now just pixels and memory. I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I had nothing left to say. And that's what terrified her the most. Weeks passed. She tried calling from different numbers. She emailed. Even wrote a long message through my fitness account pretending to be just curious how I was doing. Still, I said nothing. Not out of anger. Out of completion. I didn't owe her a final word. She had her chance when I was still within reach. When I was still soft. Still willing to listen. She could have saved it. But she bet on my weakness. And now, all she had left was the echo of her own voice. I changed my number. Deleted the last photo we ever took together. Burned the shirt she always stole to sleep in. I was done. Not in the dramatic, Hollywood ending kind of way. No slamming doors. No teary speeches. Just done. The kind of ending that doesn't need punctuation. It just fades to black, and you don't rewind. I bought a new watch that day. Not because I needed it, but because it marked time differently. It didn't tick with hesitation. It pulsed with intent. Time wasn't passing anymore. I was choosing it. People ask me now why I seem so calm. Why I never talk about her. Why I never slipped into bitterness or chaos. Because the storm ended when I left the house still on fire and never looked back. That's the part she'll never understand. She thought the worst thing I could do was yell. But the real punishment was peace. Because peace is what you earn after you've been shattered and still refuse to break. And now, when she sits in that silence she created, scrolling through memories, looking for signs of life, she hears it louder than ever. Not my voice. Not my footsteps. Not my forgiveness. Only the void. And it has her name on it. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.